Welcome to Podcast Movement 2023.
Hi, everybody. Can you hear me on this mic? And also this mic, should I choose to use? No? Okay, one. Okay, good. Hi, my name's Ariel Nissenblatt. I am here to talk about AI tools to supercharge your social media. We've got 30 minutes together. I will be leaving time for questions. I want this to be a very interactive session for you. I want you to walk away with at least one tool that you're going to check out to aid in your social media content creation process. And in order to do that, I would like to ask a few questions. Raise your hand if you host a podcast yourself. That's a lot. Raise your hand if you work on other people's podcasts. Raise your hand if you do social media for your own podcast. Raise your hand if you do social media for other people's podcasts. And then, up here would be you are very confident. Down here would be you are not confident. How do you feel about social media? Okay, that's some are high, some are low. Okay. I want to know why you came here today. Can I have a few people shout out their answers of why you came to a session on AI for social media? New tools, simplify, scale. What about pricing? Time consuming. Okay, very cool. Okay, all of that will aid in the next 28 minutes. I promise I will leave time for questions. So if you do have questions, keep them. And I think I'm going to dedicate at least 10 minutes to questions, depending on how I get through my slides. This is me. My name's Ariel Nissenblatt. I'm the Community Marketing Manager at Descript, which was acquired by Squadcast last week. I'm very excited about that, and I'll talk a little bit about why that's a really big deal for podcasters. I was the head of community and content at Squadcast, which is a remote recording platform. Now, Squadcast and Descript work together, so you can record in Squadcast, edit in Descript. Eventually, it'll be a very seamless process. I am also an ambassador for Ausha. I have a podcast called Trailer Park, the podcast Trailer Podcast. You have to say it like that. Trailer Park. I don't know why. It's a podcast where each episode I feature a different trailer that has been submitted to me, and me and my co-host, we go through all the submissions, and we figure out who we want to feature, and then we talk a little bit about the trailer. We rip you down a little bit, but then we build you back up. So if you go to trailerparkpodcast.crd.co, you will see where you can submit your trailer to potentially be featured. And you can also see that we have a really nice site on Ausha, because I really love hosting my podcast on Ausha. I'll say that again if you want to video that. Just kidding. All right, so here is what we're going to cover today. We're going to talk about why AI, why artificial intelligence. We will talk about the tools to discover. I have picked out a few. There are, of course, tons and tons of tools. If you go to Google and you search AI tools for podcasters, you will find lists and lists and lists, and a lot of them do the same thing. So, you could test all those out. You could do the free trials for all of them, which I do recommend. Why not? But I'm just going to cover a few of them for the sake of simplicity. Then I'm going to talk about how to implement them. I will give some examples of people that are successfully using AI tools for their podcast, for social media. And then I love a good recap. If you went to my first talk today with Harry Duran, who just entered the room, hey, Harry, you'll know that I'm a really big fan of, at the beginning of a talk, at the beginning of a podcast, telling you what you're about to learn, during the talk, teaching you that, and then at the end, telling you exactly what you learned, and then afterwards you come up to me and you say, Ariel, I didn't actually learn anything, and I say, shit. So I hope you actually do learn something today. Let's get into it. Okay, let's talk about why AI. Some of you already shouted these things out. You would like to simplify your workflow when it comes to your podcast, social media production things. We are also in a huge boom when it comes to AI tools for creators. And most importantly, you cannot do it all when it comes to producing, scripting, guesting, booking, editing, social media production, all that kind of stuff. It is impossible to keep up with, especially if you are a solo podcaster or if you have a small team behind you. So what I am here to tell you today is that social media is important, but it is definitely not everything when it comes to promoting your show. And I'm sure some of you understand where I'm coming from when I say that, because you post on social, it's a perfect post. You have really gorgeous artwork. You've optimized it for the specific social channel that you're posting on. It gets a ton of likes, it gets a ton of comments, it gets a ton of shares, but it does not necessarily bring people to then go and click on your profile, then go listen to your podcast. Why? I'll tell you. It is because when people are on social media, they are scrolling on social media, and often they are not ready to leave that social platform in order to go and check out your podcast. But they are storing it in their brains. They're thinking, okay, Allison just put out an amazing episode, and she just put a really great post on social pointing me to that episode. I don't have time to listen now, but it's stuck in my brain now that Allison is a really great content creator, and she just put out, of course, and she just put out a really great episode, and when I have time later and I'm scrolling through my podcast listening app, I see Allison's face, and I'm going to go check out that episode because I heard about it on social. So maybe it's not going to convert for you right then and there, but it is still important to have social media looking good, sounding good, feeling good, and also not taking up too much of your time. So let's get into some tools that we are going to be talking about today. We're going to be talking about Descript, which is the company that I now work for. But when I made this presentation, I did not work for them. They just, that's how I get away from my spawn. Then we're going to talk about Ausha, of course, the sponsor of this room, but also the hosting provider that I use for Trailer Park, the podcast Trailer Podcast. And then we're going to talk about ChatGPT, which powers a lot of AI tools for podcasters, but we're going to talk about it, how to use it in and of itself. So let's get into Descript. Raise your hand if you're familiar with Descript. That's good name recognition. Descript is an all-in-one podcast video editor that works like a Word doc. So basically what happens is you can record right into Descript if you want. I do that with my podcast, which is called Feedback with Earbuds. It's a podcast recommendation podcast. It is a solo podcast, so it's just me. So I press the Descript recorder. I record right there. It transcribes it as I'm speaking. And then what I do is I go through and I cut out things that I don't like. I cut out stumbles. I cut out if I retake something. I cut out if I make a joke and then I realize that I really hated that joke. And then I can go do the post-production in there as well. So that is what Descript is for my purposes. You can also use it to record video. You can also now record in Squadcast and automatically then edit in Descript. So it's a really great, seamless production process. But they have some great tools that you can also use for social media, including audiograms and things like that. So I mentioned this in the talk that I was at just before this. I was on stage over there. I mentioned eye contact. So this is an AI feature that Descript has. If you do record video with your podcast using Descript, and you are recording solo at this point, or if you want to upload a video afterwards and record if you want to upload a video afterwards and do some editing on that, and you realize that you're not really looking at the camera, a really cool thing is that you can press a button and all of a sudden you're looking at the camera. So that is using AI to do that. Game changer. If you are somebody who really values eye contact when it comes to content production, I highly recommend checking that out. I believe it's in beta now, but it's definitely something that is going to be a game changer for creators. Studio sound is if you are recording in a cavernous room like this. If I were to upload this audio onto Descript and then press a button that said studio sound, it would sound great. Overdub is the ability to redo a word using AI. So I can type in a word, and it knows my voice well enough that I don't even have to have said that word. It will just then start redoing that word for me. It's kind of crazy. I definitely recommend playing around with it. And then, of course, filler word detector / removal. If you want to, in Descript, after you upload your entire, whether you record right within Descript or you upload an audio file for it to be transcribed, you can bulk delete all of your ums, all of your stumbles, all of your word repeats. Bulk delete is powerful. I don't necessarily recommend doing that. I usually go through my entire transcript and I delete the things that I want, especially because sometimes ums are okay. I would like that on a shirt. Sometimes ums are okay. Audiograms on Descript are really great. This is less of an AI feature, but more of something that you can use all of the above to then create an audiogram that you then post on social media. Ausha. What is Ausha, Jennifer? Ausha is the first podcast marketing platform with all the tools a podcaster needs to launch and grow their podcast. We're going to get into some of those things. Like I said, I use Ausha for Trailer Park, the podcast Trailer Podcast, which you can check out at trailerparkpodcast.crd.co. Here are some of the AI features that Ausha has. We've got ChatGPT integration, we've got transcription detection, and we've got YouTube automation. I personally use the YouTube automation. Every time I upload my newest episode of Trailer Park to Ausha, there is a very easy button that you can press that will publish to YouTube. So then I just go to my YouTube, and if I want to add more descriptions or if I want to check some boxes when it comes to SEO for my titles and everything like that, I can do that. I can add a new thumbnail. I can do whatever it is that I need to do, but it automatically distributes to YouTube, and I am There's a lot of debate nowadays, if you were at the panel that just happened a moment ago about video in podcasting. Come talk to me later about whether or not you should have video for your podcast, but I do not think that it is that hard for you to press a button using Ausha and automatically have your content on YouTube. That is something that, easy to press a button, why not do it? And of course, we can get more into the nuances of that, but I say, why not test around? ChatGPT, what is it? ChatGPT is an AI-powered language model that is capable of generating human-like text based on context and past conversations. Raise your hand if you've played around with ChatGPT. That's huge. So fun news, ChatGPT is integrated with Ausha. ChatGPT is probably integrated with a lot of the tools that you use or that you will use, and it can be extremely powerful for podcasters for a number of reasons. I don't necessarily recommend using ChatGPT to come up with topics for your podcast, but I do highly recommend using it when it comes to creating social media content for your podcast. Here is one of the ways that I've done that. I record my podcast, Trailer Park, the podcast, Trailer Podcast. I upload it, of course, to Ausha. This is my whole workflow. But then I'm editing it. Before I do that, I'm editing it in Descript. And when I'm editing it in Descript, I get my transcript. When I'm done, I can download my transcript, and I can throw that whole thing onto ChatGPT, and I can say, hey, come up with a bunch of social posts. And, of course, you should be nice to the robot. So you should say, hey, can you come up with a bunch of social posts for me to share this latest episode of Trailer Park, the podcast, Trailer Podcast? Or you could say, hey, what would be a really good YouTube description? What would be a really good YouTube title? What would be a really great email subject line in order to introduce this podcast episode? Okay, I started talking about it before I went to the slide. Here are some things that you can do. You can summarize transcripts. You can generate social posts. That's the one that I bolded because I like it the most. And of course, you can use it to brainstorm topics. I do think that using your human brain for topics is probably best, and especially asking your audience what they want from you is probably better than asking ChatGPT what your audience wants from you. But for social posts, definitely play around with it. So let's talk about some use cases, and then I'm going to leave a lot of time for questions. Use cases. So I want to talk about the business of sound. If I go back, okay. Business of Sound is a podcast from Glassbox Media, which I believe they have a booth here. Nick Kastner, who runs their marketing, let me know that what he does for social posts here is he does exactly what I did. He downloads his transcript, throws it into ChatGPT, and asks ChatGPT what they would do to promote that episode. So if you're curious about an example of that, search for Glassbox Media, search for Business of Sound, and see how he does that. Next up, this is a French podcast that uses Ausha to host. They use Ausha for their YouTube integration and also for their ChatGPT prompts, so check that out. And then this is playable, and I would like to play that. Do you know how I do that? Team? Please hold, sing a song. So this is a trailer that I made for Trailer Park, the podcast, Trailer Podcast, and I just want to show you all of the things that I was able to do with it. For context, I interviewed Dan Hughley, who is the marketing manager at Focusrite, which is an audio interface, and Focusrite is a large company that does a lot of audio and production-related hardware, but they also recently released a product called the Vocaster, which is an audio interface made specifically for podcasters. They were one of the sponsors for the first season of Trailer Park, and we interviewed Dan, my co-host and I interviewed Dan about Focusrite, and then made an audiogram and posted it all around, and I can talk to you about the nuances of how that did, but I just wanted to give you all that context while I was vamping to try to figure out if we can play the audiogram. If not, I'll move on. Just let me know. Truly give me the word, I will move on. That's fine. Move on. We're moving on. It's a really great audiogram. You can actually find it if you follow me on social media. And you can do that by searching for Ariel Nissenblatt. Very unique spelling. I will have it at the end, and you'll be able to find me. I think I need to get clicking back now. Okay, there we go. So this is me generating generating with AI on Ausha. So this is when I upload my podcast to Ausha in order to get my, in order to post it on all the podcast listening apps, I am able to generate social posts right within Ausha using AI. So that's a really cool thing. So something to watch out for when it comes to ChatGPT is it tends to be very excited. It tends to say, exciting news, ! Or something like that. New episode alert. So you might want to just go through and see if you like everything that it suggests for you. But the content within is very helpful, and it can definitely help you streamline what you need to be doing, when you need to be doing it. Because if you say to yourself, I need to be posting X number of social posts per episode that I drop, and you just need to get the baseline of that, maybe you can export that and then have somebody go through and make sure that they sound like a human wrote them. But I do recommend checking out this feature. This is just a close-up on what that looks like. Oh, looks like we missed one. That's my fault. Not such a great Google Slides creator. I prefer Canva, which also has some really great AI tools for social media. Okay, so let's recap, and then we will spend the next few minutes answering some questions, and you can feel free to start thinking of those questions now. And we will also, we can kind of have a chat about social media and AI. And also, I really do want to discuss social media for the purposes of growing a podcast, so I will make another point about that. I do recommend that you test out free trials. There are, like I said, so many different tools that are AI-powered that can help podcasters create social media posts, and that can schedule your social media posts, and that can help you when it comes to when you should be posting, why you should be posting. Another tool that I did not get the chance to shout out is called SparkToro, SparkToro. It is really awesome and definitely has AI power in it. And what I really like about that is you can go in and say, I want to receive information about the people that follow me, or the people that have the following keywords in their bio. So if you are big on Twitter and you like to reach people who are B2B focused, you can search for the phrase B2B, and it'll tell you people who are the people who have B2B in their profile are tweeting about X, Y, and Z. So it's a really powerful tool that'll just help you figure out how and who to be following on Twitter and how to be interacting with them. So test out all these free trials. Truly go to Google and type in AI tools for podcasters. Test out all those free trials. You will come away with something that you want to try, something that you hate. You'll also come away with the knowledge that a lot of them are very similar. Oops. Experiment with formats and timing. This is really big. Just because ChatGPT generates a post for you that says, new episode alert, and they do that every single time you ask it to generate a prompt for you, does not mean you should post that just like that every single time. You should absolutely experiment when it comes to formats. So maybe try a thread on Twitter or X. Maybe try posting on LinkedIn, a short post, a long post. It doesn't always have to point directly back to your podcast. That is something very important. You do not always have to link off to your podcast. Generally, just pointing people towards you is a smart thing to do. Letting people know that you are a high-quality content creator in your niche is valuable in and of itself. You don't necessarily need to always be linking out, especially because if you continue to link out, the social media platforms are going to deprioritize your posts because all you're doing is asking your followers to leave their platform. So if you can keep people on their platform, you will be rewarded. So posting high-quality content, posting things that encourage engagement is going to be something that will be helpful for you. And I always say, if social media is difficult for you, choose 10 minutes every single day to go on social, to do your social tasks, but do not make it the same 10 minutes every single day because there are different people who go on social at different times. So for a week, for a month, whatever it is, test out different times, test out different formats. Be consistent, be quality-minded. What I mean by that is do test out with different timings, do test out with different formats, but keep the same colors if you're posting about one podcast, keep the same font if you're creating graphics on Canva. Generally speaking, have the same tone of voice so that people recognize you and they recognize the goal of your show and what you're putting out into the world. And make sure that you spell check. That's what I mean by quality-minded. You would be surprised what gets put out there. Stay level-headed when it comes to social posts. This is my little rant that I'm just going to go back to, which is that social media is great for podcasts, but it is not everything. There are other things that you can be doing to grow your podcast that are not social media. I can talk about those if you come up to me after this. I can talk about those in other panels that I'm on today, but social media is great. You need it. You need to be consistent on it. You need to stay level-headed about it. You need to experiment with formats, with timings, but don't drive yourself up a wall if your social is not converting to listeners, to downloads, to people visiting your website. That is okay. It is all in the service of making you a portfolio entrepreneur, meaning that people are seeing you, they're seeing you post about this, they're seeing you post about that. It is all contributing to their overall perception of you. For example, if you go to any of my platforms on social media. I'm big on Twitter. I really like LinkedIn. I'm on Instagram. But I am constantly posting about podcasting because I want you to think of the word podcasting, and then I want you to see my face in your head. And I'm just going to constantly be reinforcing that on social media, whether or not it converts to tons of downloads for my podcast about podcast trailers or my podcast about podcast recommendations or converts to people signing up for my newsletter. I don't really care because ultimately it is getting people to be familiar with who I am, and that will serve me in the end. So that's what I mean when I say stay level-headed when it comes to social posts. So Ausha has a few resources for you to check out. You can go to ausha.com. Really great YouTube channel, of course, and Sarah, who runs the YouTube channel, has a lot of important resources when it comes to checking out these AI feature tools within Ausha, so definitely go check that out. And then there's also Tips, the podcast, so if you prefer video, if you prefer audio, check those out. Ausha, check it out. You can ask me more about it later. Like I said, I use it for Trailer Park, the podcast Trailer Podcast. And thank you. That's my information. We have about 8.5 minutes left. I would love to take some questions. We have a microphone runner, and I will do my best to answer them. And that's all my information. Would love it if you follow me and then get in touch with me. Oh, you don't have to clap yet. That's fine. Thanks.
Good afternoon. My name is Adrian. I'm in the back. One of the questions I have is, what's a good AI content tool that's more culturally sensitive? Because being a person of color, and that's my audience is, when I use ChatGPT or some other ones, it comes back with stuff that's not really pertain to how we culturally speak, or culturally, if I put in stuff, what it means, and it comes back sometimes stuff that's inappropriate culturally, right? It will say if I put women, black, it might say colored back to me, or colored girls, and I'm like, no, right? So do you know anyone that kind of have that in there? Because that's the only thing I don't like about the AI generative content sometimes.
I do not know any off the top of my head, but I don't mean to leave you in a lurch. What I will say is that I believe, and somebody can check me on this, the more that people use it, the more it becomes trained.
Okay.
So that will take time, and I'm sure that there are people out there who are aware of AI tools that are more culturally sensitive. I recommend, there's a really great podcast called There Are No Girls on the Internet. It's hosted by somebody named Bridget Todd. She knows everything. Whether she's done an episode on this, I don't know, but she's also big on Twitter, and honestly, she probably is aware of this, or at least is aware that there's a gap. Yeah. So, yeah, okay. Good resource to be aware of.
Hi, thank you. Just to add right there, for the ChatGPT, it is based on 2021 info, so maybe it's just also not updated to the conversations around race or representation in terms of the output that it'll provide. So, and that's the free 3.5 version that you can access. My question for you, have you used any AI tools specifically to automate and improve the video production process in terms of grabbing snippets from a longer form and then also outputting it in batch for uploading other than audiograms, so your full actual video and all?
Yes. So there's a really great tool. There are tons like this, but the one that I really like is called Opus, opus.pro. What you do there is you upload a YouTube link, and it will automatically generate 10 clips that you can use, and it ranks it in its prediction of how viral they will go. So it's great. What I will say is that if you have not already uploaded your video to YouTube and you don't want to, you can always upload it and make it unlisted and then upload that video. So that's a really great tool, and there are tons like it. Again, if you go to AI tools for video creators, you'll find lookalike, but I do really like that tool a lot. Oh, and in terms of batching, I don't use any batching features, mostly because I think that things change too much from, like, I'm afraid to schedule something personally. I'm just constantly on social media, but I totally recognize that people do like to batch. I am just not the person to ask because I am constantly on the internet.
Speaking of video content, do you know of any that will edit that video for you? I know that a lot of like mainly TikTok and Instagram Reels are they change the perception, or it zooms in and zooms out, or adds like little cartoons at the bottom. Do you know of any that will add that for you, or yeah?
Yes, tons exist.
Cool.
And the one that I'm thinking of, I am blanking on. I'm so sorry. You went to grab your pen, but come find me after and I'll tell you.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Hi, so I actually wanted to ask if there's any prompts that you would recommend. So I own a group private practice. I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist. And I also run a podcast for high achieving women. So I teach high achieving women how to stay married. So what would you recommend for like prompts to use for this particular, for AI?
Specifically for creating social posts for your
Well, yeah,
podcast?
so I'm gonna like totally record this because I don't type fast. So like I said, I own a group private practice as a licensed clinician, and then I also have a podcast, and I also do like workshops and courses. And so it's a lot of information. How would you like, I guess,
Yeah.
okay.
I think what I would do is, first of all, if you're using ChatGPT, it learns from you over time. So if you have a previous comment in there and you say, you call me Mr. Bubble Pants forever, it will call you Mr. Bubble Pants forever, right? So you obviously, do what you want with that information. You can use it for good, right? So what I mean is, like, if you want them to always say something in the style of X, in a familiar tone, you can say, hey, please, whenever you are giving me social posts in the future, please make sure it is in a familiar tone, right? So you can let them know that in advance so that you don't have to tell that to them every single time. A prompt that I have used that I just want to talk about how smart ChatGPT can be is that one time somebody sent me a bio of theirs in third person, and I needed it to be in first person, and it was a really long bio, and I literally just said, change this to first person, right? So you can have it do small things like that constantly. That's not necessarily going to help you when it comes to social, but what I mean is, like, you can go on there and say, hey, take this entire transcript and boil it down into a 10-sentence description of what they could find within this episode. You could say, take this transcript and let me know the best pieces that I should make a new episode on. Where is it the most impactful? Where might people find the most value? Things like that. So those are just some things to test out.
Beautiful, thank you.
Two quick questions. The first is, you already have the audio edited, so there's been a bunch of cuts, but you also record in video and you want to sync the video to the audio. Is there an AI tool that will just do that, or do you got to pay somebody to do that manual process?
Such a good question. I'm not the tech person for you.
Okay.
What I will say is go to the Descript booth and meet Marcelo.
Okay. Thank you.
You can follow me there after.
Thank you. Second one is audience engagement. AI tools for audience engagement.
SparkToro, SparkToro. You'll learn about your audience. You'll learn about your intended audience. And are you asking, and there's other tools out there that will, once your tweet or once your Facebook post or once your LinkedIn post reaches X number of likes or comments, it will automatically add another post that says, if you want more of this, check out my newsletter, things like that.
Okay.
Again, don't have it off the top of my head, but come find me.
Thank you.
It's all possible with AI, which was built by humans, which is nice. We have about a minute left. I would love one last question. Please feel free to ask me anything. It does not have to be about AI. It can be about, I got a deep fryer for my 9th birthday. You can ask me which French fries I like to make. They were crinkly.
I do want to know about French fries, but
Thought so.
do you have any standard response to people who are hesitant or concerned about the ethics of using AI?
I'm concerned about the ethics of AI. I just think that that's why when it comes to social posts, I am okay with it. when it comes to generating content ideas or overdubbing my voice or, using Barack Obama's voice to talk about something that he clearly didn't talk about. I really do try to stay away from that for now. I listen to a podcast called Hard Fork by the New York Times, and I think they're having really nuanced discussions about all of this. And also On with Kara Swisher. Anything by Kara Swisher is really great. Of course, it's not going to give you like a concrete answer to any of this, but I think we're in the question asking stage, and that is where I'm staying for now, and then using AI for what I think is really just going to help you with your workflow. Thank you all so much.
Thank you.